There is far more to sacred temples than what the history books teach. We are about to journey into the world of untold myths, stories whispered through generations and hidden in ancient texts that mainstream narratives often overlook. This is an adventure into the shadows of history, where we will uncover 25 secrets that fundamentally challenge our conventional understanding of these holy sites. By the end, you will possess a collection of astonishing legends from temples spanning the globe, from the jungles of Cambodia to the mountains of Peru. What if the stones of Angkor Wat were moved by sound, and what lost city is said to sleep beneath the Temple of Solomon? What do you believe is the greatest mystery still hidden within the world's ancient temples? Massive stone blocks, some weighing many tons, were somehow transported across great distances to build the soaring towers of Angkor Wat. The official history credits the immense power of the Khmer Empire and the sheer force of human labor, an army of workers hauling these monoliths. But an enduring local legend tells a different story, a tale where the stones themselves were coaxed into moving. It is said that the temple's architects did not rely on brute strength alone. They possessed a sacred conch shell, a divine instrument whose resonant sound, when blown, could lighten the heaviest stones, guiding them to float effortlessly into their precise positions. This is not merely a fanciful story, for the very walls of the temple seem to hold the echo of this idea. Intricate carvings, long dismissed as simple decoration, are now being re-examined. Some researchers propose these are not random patterns, but sophisticated acoustic maps, diagrams that chart the flow of sound waves through the complex. The historical context makes this idea even more compelling. The Khmer Empire was a civilization of unparalleled architectural genius, creating structures with a precision that still baffles modern engineers. They understood mathematics, hydraulics, and astronomy on a level that seems almost supernatural. So why not acoustics? Modern scientific investigations have begun to probe this mystery. Teams of archaeologists and physicists have taken sophisticated sound equipment into the temple's corridors and galleries. They have discovered something astonishing. Certain chambers possess unique sonic properties, creating standing waves and resonant frequencies that can amplify a whisper or create an eerie, palpable vibration. This is not proof of sound-based levitation, but it is evidence that the builders had a profound, intentional understanding of how sound behaves in their stone creation. The myth of the Whispering Stones, therefore, is far more than a charming folk tale. It represents a beautiful and profound blend of spiritual belief and engineering genius. It suggests that the builders of Angkor Wat possessed a form of lost knowledge, a holistic science where spirituality and physics were not separate disciplines, but two sides of the same sacred coin. They may have understood that everything, even solid stone, exists in a state of vibration, and that by harnessing the right frequency, the seemingly impossible could be achieved. The question that lingers in the humid jungle air is not just how they built it, but what else they knew about the hidden power of sound, a secret that continues to resonate just beyond our understanding. While the stones of Angkor Wat whisper of forgotten science, another legend speaks of a city sleeping in silence beneath one of the world's most contested pieces of ground. The Temple of Solomon, a structure central to three major faiths, is believed by many to be more than just a memory of fallen walls. The enduring myth claims its true secret lies not in what was built above, but in what was concealed below, a vast subterranean city rumored to hold the ultimate treasures of faith and history. This hidden realm is often identified as the final resting place of the Ark of the Covenant, that fabled chest containing the stone tablets of the law, or even a library of antediluvian knowledge, preserving wisdom from a world before the Great Flood. The historical and religious significance of the Temple Mount, the site where Solomon's temple once stood, cannot be overstated. It is a place considered holy by Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, a nexus of divine promise and human devotion for millennia. This profound sacredness is the very soil from which the myth grows. The stories began with medieval legends, particularly those surrounding the Knights Templar. This powerful order of warrior monks was rumored to have excavated beneath the temple's ruins during the Crusades, discovering not just gold but secrets that granted them immense influence and wealth. Their mysterious rites and sudden rise to power have fueled speculation for centuries, suggesting they found something far more valuable than material treasure. In the modern era, the quest has continued with more sophisticated tools. Ground-penetrating radar scans of the area have consistently revealed a labyrinth of unexplained voids, tunnels, and chambers deep under the surface. These are not just small cavities, but large, structured spaces that archaeologists have not been able to fully explore. Each new scan adds fuel to the fire, providing a tantalizing scientific hint that the legends might be rooted in physical reality. This myth does more than just drive archaeological fervor. It directly fuels intense geopolitical tensions. The Temple Mount is one of the most sensitive locations on Earth, and any proposed excavation is met with immediate and serious political and religious opposition. The very act of digging is seen not as a scientific pursuit, but as a potential desecration or a claim of ownership over the holy site. This transforms the search for the subterranean city from a simple treasure hunt into a high-stakes conflict over history, faith, and national identity. Ultimately, the power of this myth lies in what it represents for the human spirit. It is a quest for a tangible, physical connection to the divine, for proof that the most sacred stories of our past are rooted in literal truth. The search for the city beneath the temple is a search for the Ark, for lost knowledge, for a direct line to a time when God was said to walk with humanity. It is a longing that transcends mere curiosity, a deep-seated need to uncover a foundation stone not just of a temple, but of faith itself. Far from the contested ground of Jerusalem, a different kind of temple rises from the English plains, its silent stones seemingly conversing with the heavens. While most know Stonehenge aligns with the summer solstice sun, a more profound myth suggests its purpose was infinitely more complex. This was not merely a calendar marking the seasons, but a sophisticated astronomical machine, a stone computer built to predict lunar eclipses and track the slow, grand cycles of planets with an accuracy that defies its age. The builders, a people we often think of as primitive, may have possessed a celestial knowledge that rivals our own early scientific understanding. The key lies in the specific arrangement of the stones. The great central trilithons, those iconic gateways of stone, are not randomly placed. Some researchers argue they frame sightlines to specific stars, like the brilliant Sirius, and create alignments that pinpoint the Moon's most extreme positions in its 18.6-year cycle, the so-called lunar standstills. This would have allowed the priests or astronomers of the time to forecast eclipses, events that would have seemed like the Moon being consumed by a celestial dragon, a power that would have cemented their authority and connected them directly to the cosmos. This view, however, stands in stark contrast to the mainstream archaeological perspective. Many scholars see Stonehenge first and foremost as a vast ceremonial landscape, a place of the dead, a monument for ancestral worship and social gathering. They point to the cremated human remains found on site and the long processional avenues leading to the circle, arguing its primary function was spiritual and communal, not scientific. The astronomical alignments, they suggest, were part of that spirituality, a way to honor the gods of the sky, not to compute their movements. The mystery deepens further with the enigma of the bluestones, the smaller, distinctively colored stones transported from mountains over 150 miles away. A persistent legend surrounds these stones, calling them the Bluestone Oracle. This myth claims they were chosen not for their color alone, but for their purported healing energies and their ability to channel telluric currents, the Earth's own subtle electromagnetic flows. This transforms Stonehenge from a simple observatory into a temple of both sky and earth, a place where the power of the stars above was harmonized with the energies of the land below. People were drawn here not just to watch the heavens, but to be healed, to receive visions, and to tap into a primal force that connected them to the entire universe. The controversy, then, is not just about what Stonehenge is, but what it represents. Was it a Neolithic cathedral for the dead, a university for astronomer priests, or a hospital powered by the planet's own energy? Perhaps it was all three, a place where science, spirituality, and the very substance of the earth were seen as one inseparable truth, a secret written in stone and sky that we are still struggling to read. High on a volcanic plain in Java, Borobudur rises like a stone mountain of intricate pathways and silent, watching statues. This colossal Buddhist monument, the largest of its kind in the world, is said to be anything but silent or still. According to enduring Javanese myth, its true protectors are not the worn stone Buddhas, but the Nagas, powerful serpent deities woven into the very fabric of the temple. These are not mere carvings, they are believed to be living guardians, their stone forms imbued with a spirit that awakens, especially under the glow of a full moon, to defend the sacred site from any harm or malevolent intent. The evidence of their presence is etched into the monument itself. Walk the concentric galleries and you will find them everywhere. Serpentine bodies coil around balustrades, their hooded heads emerging from the stone to watch your every step. They are depicted not as monsters but as noble, powerful beings, often serving as the protectors and throne of the Buddha, a direct link between the earthly realm and the enlightened one. This integration is a masterstroke of spiritual fusion. When Borobudur was constructed, the local Indonesian population held deep animist beliefs, a worldview where every mountain, tree, and river had its own spirit. The architects of the temple did not erase these beliefs. Instead, they wove them into the Buddhist narrative, transforming the indigenous water serpents and earth spirits into the Nagas of Buddhist cosmology. This made the temple not an alien imposition, but a part of the living landscape, its spiritual authority reinforced by the very forces the people already revered. The myth is far from a forgotten relic. Even today, local villagers and attentive visitors report strange occurrences that defy easy explanation. A sudden, chilling mist might roll across the upper terraces on a clear, windless night. Visitors speak of hearing low, guttural hisses that seem to emanate from the stone itself, or the sound of something heavy slithering across the pathways when no one is there. These phenomena are not dismissed as imagination. They are accepted as the activity of the guardian Nagas, a sign that the temple is alive and protected. This belief creates a powerful, tangible connection to the past. It suggests that the ancient builders understood the monument not just as an inanimate structure, but as a living entity, a convergence point of spiritual energy where the divine, the natural world, and human devotion became one. The Nagas of Borobudur are more than myth. They are the enduring soul of the temple, a reminder that some truths are not just read in texts but felt in the cool night air and heard in the whispers between the stones. High in the mountains of Georgia, the Javari Monastery stands as a stark sentinel overlooking the confluence of two raging rivers. This ancient site, a cornerstone of Georgian orthodoxy, is rumored to guard a secret far older than its own Christian walls. A persistent legend whispers of a hidden chamber, a vault sealed for centuries containing the lost library of Ivan. This was no ordinary collection. It was said to hold the last surviving texts of pre-Christian Caucasian religions, the myths of fire-worshipping Zoroastrians and the storm gods of the old pantheon, alongside early Christian gospels deemed heretical and ordered for destruction. The monastery's location was no accident for such a task. Perched on a sheer cliff, it was built in the 6th century on a site where a holy cross had miraculously stood, marking Georgia's conversion to Christianity. This land has always been a cultural crossroads, a turbulent melting pot where the empires of Persia, Rome, and Byzantium clashed, and where Silk Road caravans carried not just goods but ideas. The Caucasus was a region where beliefs collided and fused, and the Library of Ivan was supposedly created to preserve this complex tapestry, not erase it. It was hidden away to save it from the relentless march of invading armies, a time capsule of the region's entire spiritual journey. The search for this chamber has consumed scholars and treasure hunters for generations. Official archaeological surveys have carefully probed the foundations, finding little more than the sturdy rock upon which the monastery was built. Yet this has only fueled more clandestine efforts. Under the cover of night, individuals have been caught with crude maps and modern scanning equipment, trying to find a hidden entrance they believe the original monks cleverly disguised. The very walls of Javari seem to mock these attempts, their solid, unyielding stone giving no clue. This myth is powerful not because of the potential gold or jewels it might contain, but because of the words. It represents the profound, almost desperate human instinct to preserve knowledge against the certainties of time and the chaos of conflict. We imagine monks by flickering torchlight, carefully sealing away scrolls they knew were condemned, choosing to hide history rather than let it be burned. In this legend, the temple transforms from a place of worship into a sanctuary for memory itself, a guardian of stories that the world tried to forget. The true treasure of Javari Monastery may not be a room filled with parchment, but the enduring hope that somewhere, somehow, our lost stories are still waiting to be found. The silence of Javari Monastery's hidden library gives way to a far more visceral echo, a sound that still seems to pulse from the heart of ancient Mexico. In the center of the magnificent Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan, stood the Templo Maya, a towering pyramid dedicated to the gods of war and rain. But the most enduring and chilling myth surrounding this temple is not about its construction, but about its purpose. Spanish chroniclers and Aztec codices describe a belief so central to their world, it shaped the very stones of the structure. The Aztecs believed the sun god, Tonatiuh, required a specific and terrible nourishment to continue his daily journey across the sky, to prevent the permanent darkness and the end of the world. That nourishment was human blood and hearts. This was not random violence, but a deeply ritualistic offering, a sacred duty to sustain the cosmos itself. The temple's architecture was designed explicitly for this purpose. At the summit, two shrines sat side by side. A victim would be stretched backwards over a convex stone, their chest arched upwards. A priest, using a ritual knife of obsidian, would perform a swift, precise cut to extract the still beating heart. This heart, seen as a fragment of the sun's own energy, was then offered to Tonatiuh in a vessel called a Quetzalcoatl, often carved in the shape of an eagle. The blood was poured as a sacred libation, but the ritual did not end there. The most haunting architectural feature was the Tes Ampantli, a massive rack of wooden poles where the skulls of the sacrificed were publicly displayed in rows, a grim testament to the scale of the offerings believed necessary to keep the world alive. Modern historians are locked in a fierce debate over the true scale of these sacrifices. The Spanish conquistadors, led by Hernán Cortés, had every reason to exaggerate the numbers to justify their own brutal conquest, describing tens of thousands of victims in a single ceremony. Many contemporary scholars argue these numbers are propaganda, suggesting the sacrifices, while real, were far less frequent and on a much smaller scale. They propose the rituals were potent political theater, a way for the Aztec elite to demonstrate their power and control over life and death, to awe and intimidate rival city-states. Yet the myth persists, evolving into a modern legend that ties the present directly to that sacred, violent past. Visitors and locals alike have reported eerie phenomena near the excavated ruins of the Templo Maya in modern-day Mexico City. On certain dates, particularly those aligned with ancient Aztec festivals, people claim to hear the faint, rhythmic thumping of drums or the distant, ghostly murmur of chanting voices rising from the ground. Skeptics dismiss these sounds as the noise of the bustling city, the wind through the ruins, or simple suggestion. But for those who hear them, it is an undeniable echo, a psychic scar on the land where the desperate prayers of a people trying to save the world from eternal night still resonate, a chilling reminder of a time when faith was measured in the beat of a human heart. The desperate pulse of the Templo Mayor fades, replaced by a different kind of power, one that spoke not through sacrifice but through riddles uttered in a trance. The Oracle of Delphi was the most famous prophet of the ancient world, a woman whose cryptic words shaped wars and founded colonies. For centuries, the accepted explanation was simple. She descended into an underground chamber, inhaled sweet-smelling vapors rising from a fissure in the rock, and fell into a divine frenzy. Modern science seemed to confirm this, identifying the presence of ethylene gas, a known intoxicant in the local geology. But what if this answer is too simple, a single piece of a much larger and more mysterious puzzle? A deeper myth suggests the Pythia was not just breathing fumes. She was plugging into the very energy of the Earth itself. Recent geological studies of the site reveal a far more complex picture than a single gas vent. The temple at Delphi sits directly atop two major fault lines, a unique intersection where the Earth's crust is fractured and permeable. These faults do more than just release ethylene. They are conduits for a cocktail of other gases, including methane and carbon dioxide, each contributing to a potent psychoactive atmosphere. But the physical influence may not have stopped with the air she breathed. Scientific instruments have detected unusual magnetic anomalies around the site, fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field that some researchers believe can directly affect the human brain, inducing states of altered consciousness, vivid visions, and a feeling of dissociation. Then there is the element of sound. The chamber's location and the movement of subterranean water and gases could have generated powerful, low-frequency infrasound, vibrations far below the range of human hearing. While we cannot hear these tones, our bodies and minds feel them, experiencing them as feelings of awe, unease, or even full-blown trance states. This is the untold myth. The Pythia was not merely a priestess on drugs. She was a carefully selected conduit, sitting at the precise confluence of intoxicating gases, shifting magnetic fields, and pervasive, silent sound waves. This combination would have created a perfect storm for altered consciousness, not just for her, but for the entire temple complex. The pilgrims, waiting in a state of high anticipation, might have been subtly influenced by this same environmental soup, making them profoundly susceptible to her every word. This leads to the most speculative layer of the legend, the idea that Delphi was a recognized Earth energy vortex. The ancient Greeks called it the omphalos, the navel of the world. This was not just a poetic name. It was a declaration that this spot was a direct channel to the planet's vital force, a place where the boundary between the human and the divine was tissue-thin. The Pythia was the instrument tuned to receive this signal. This ancient understanding connects directly to modern concepts of geomancy, the study of Earth energies, and psychoacoustics, the science of how sound affects the mind. It suggests the builders of these sacred sites possessed an intuitive, profound knowledge of their local environment, choosing locations not just for their beauty or strategic value, but for their tangible, physiological power. The true prophecy of Delphi may not have been in the riddles the Pythia spoke, but in the lost knowledge of how to harness the unseen forces of the living earth to open a doorway into the human soul. The ancient stones of the shore temple at Mahabalipuram stand defiant against the constant crash of the Bay of Bengal, yet a local Tamil legend insists this is not a solitary monument. It claims this temple is the last one standing of 7 magnificent pagodas, a glorious city whose 6 sister temples were swallowed by the sea as punishment for their pride. For generations, this was considered a poetic fable, a story to explain the relentless power of the ocean. Then, in 2004, a catastrophic tsunami struck the coast. As the enormous wave receded, it pulled back a curtain of water and sand, and for a brief, astonishing moment, local fishermen and witnesses reported seeing the outlines of man-made structures, rows of large stone blocks and the foundations of buildings, revealed on the seabed before the water returned to cover them once more. Science had accidentally provided a stunning glimpse into myth. The idea of a sunken city was not born from the tsunami, however. It is echoed in far older records. The famed Venetian traveler Marco Polo, who visited this coast in the 13th century, wrote of a prosperous port city bristling with splendid temples. Even earlier European merchants and explorers spoke of the 7 pagodas, their accounts suggesting these structures were a known landmark for sailors, a stunning skyline greeting ships from the sea. These historical testimonies transform the local legend from isolated folklore into a persistent, cross-cultural narrative. Driven by these stories and the tsunami's revelation, archaeological teams from India and international organizations began systematic underwater surveys. Using sonar mapping and submersibles, they explored the waters directly off the shore. Their findings were electrifying. They discovered not just random stones, but the remains of a submerged wall, large rectangular blocks that could only have been shaped by human hands, and the foundations of what appeared to be several ancient structures. These were not natural rock formations. They were the physical evidence of a lost settlement, a civilization that had built along a coastline that now lies underwater. This discovery fuels a narrative that resonates across the globe, a story of a great flood that consumed a proud and advanced civilization. The myth of Mahabalipuram's sunken pagodas finds its echo in the biblical story of Noah's Ark, in the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh, and in countless other cultural memories of a world washed clean. It positions this temple not merely as a place of worship, but as a solitary sentinel, a marker for a forgotten coastal civilization whose achievements now lie beneath the waves. The true power of this myth is that it forces us to confront a profound truth about our world. Coastlines change, sea levels rise, and great cities can vanish in a single cataclysmic day. The shore temple, therefore, is more than a relic. It is a warning and a memory, a stone finger pointing towards the sea, reminding us that the border between land and water is never permanent, and that the ocean keeps its secrets well. The roar of the sea at Mahabalipuram gives way to a more intimate kind of confusion, the disorienting silence of a complex that was never meant to be easily navigated. Far from the Indian coast, the sprawling ruins of the Palace of Knossos on Crete hold a secret deeper than the famous Minotaur in its heart. While the legend of the monstrous half-man, half-bull is known to all, a more profound myth suggests the labyrinth was not merely a cage for a beast, but a living, breathing mechanism of spiritual transformation. This was a real, physical maze, a temple designed with architectural trickery and brilliant engineering to deliberately challenge the human mind. The sheer complexity of the palace layout is the first clue. With its 1,400 interconnecting rooms, sudden dead ends, corridors that double back on themselves, and stairways leading to nowhere, the building itself is a puzzle. This was not haphazard construction. It was the work of the Minoans, a civilization of unparalleled artisans and engineers who mastered advanced water management and ventilation systems. Their expertise makes it entirely plausible that they could have incorporated subtle, shifting elements into the design. Think of hidden partitions moved by water pressure, or sections of corridor that could be silently closed off, rerouting a person's path without them ever realizing it. The journey through this maze was likely a profound spiritual ordeal, a ritualized passage symbolizing death and rebirth. An initiate would enter the labyrinth, surrendering their sense of direction and control. The constant disorientation, the feeling of being lost and trapped, would strip away their ego, breaking down their old self in preparation for a new, enlightened state of being upon their eventual emergence. This was not a test of strength, but a trial of the spirit. Modern researchers have added a fascinating layer to this ancient practice. They propose that the Minoan architects may have harnessed environmental effects to heighten the psychological experience. At specific times of the day, perhaps during the equinoxes, sunlight could have streamed through strategically placed light wells, creating blinding shafts of light and deep, confusing shadows that distorted depth perception. Even more compelling is the theory of sound. The labyrinth's narrow, winding corridors of stone would have created a complex acoustic environment. A whisper might travel strangely around corners, seeming to come from behind when the source was ahead. The builders could have used running water from their sophisticated aqueducts to generate a constant masking murmur, drowning out orienting sounds and increasing the feeling of isolation. This transforms the palace of Knossos from a royal home into a temple of psychological transformation, a machine designed not to house a monster, but to confront the monsters within the human psyche. The true Minotaur was not a creature of flesh and blood, but the fear and confusion one had to face and overcome in the silent, shifting dark. While the labyrinth challenged the mind, other temples harnessed a power meant to be seen for all time. In the heart of modern India, within a few revered Zoroastrian fire temples, a sacred flame is said to have burned without interruption for over 1,000 years. These are the Atash Bayrams, the highest grade of fire temple, where the eternal flame is not a symbol but a literal, living embodiment of divine truth. The myth tells us these fires were consecrated through rituals of unimaginable complexity and purity, and that through divine protection and human devotion, they have survived empires, invasions, and the threat of extinction. The creation of an Atash Bayram fire is a monumental undertaking. It is not simply lit, but meticulously assembled from 16 different types of fire, each purified according to ancient rites. These fires are gathered from sources as diverse as a lightning strike, a funeral pyre, and the hearth of a craftsman. Each is purified in a multi-day ceremony, passed through a series of consecrated metal gratings before being united into a single, supreme flame. This is not a quick process. From start to finish, the consecration can take over a year, requiring the work of multiple priests in a state of intense ritual purity. The fuel itself is part of the sacred practice. Only certain types of wood, like sandalwood, are used, and they are handled with ceremonial tongs to ensure no human breath or impurity ever taints the fire. The historical reality, however, stands in stark contrast to the ideal of an unbroken flame. The Zoroastrian community faced centuries of persecution following the Islamic conquest of Persia. To save their most sacred fires from desecration, priests undertook perilous journeys, relocating the flames across mountains and deserts, carefully sheltering them in metal urns during the day and rekindling them in secret at night. The fires now burning in India were carried there by Zoroastrian refugees, a testament not to an unbroken physical location but to an unbroken spiritual lineage. The flame itself represents a Shah, the central Zoroastrian concept of divine order, truth, and righteousness, which stands opposed to the chaos and falsehood of the world. To stand before it is to witness a fragment of cosmic order made manifest, a constant, flickering battle against the darkness. Today, the survival of these flames depends on a new kind of vigilance. With a number of qualified priests dwindling, modern communities have turned to technology, installing backup gas lines and sophisticated monitoring systems to ensure that even if the wood fire were to falter, the sacred flame itself would never be extinguished. This blend of ancient faith and modern science asks a profound question. If the flame is a symbol of eternal truth, does its physical continuity matter? Or is its true power the unbroken line of devotion, the human will to keep a light burning through 1,000 years of darkness, preserving a spark of order in an ever-chaotic world? These stone figures are never truly at rest. At the Prambanan temple complex in Indonesia, another legend of living stone unfolds, one where the epic of the Ramayana breaks free from its granite panels under the cover of darkness. The myth insists that the intricate reliefs depicting gods, demons, and the monkey army are not static carvings. When the last visitor leaves and the moon rises, these celestial characters are said to step down from the walls, their stone forms shifting into ethereal life to reenact their ancient stories and stand vigilant guard over the sacred grounds. This belief is focused on specific, dramatic panels. On one temple wall, the scene of the monkey god Hanuman burning the city of Lanka with his fiery tail is a focal point of these tales. Locals whisper that on certain nights you can see the flicker of his flames and hear the crackle of the fire. Another panel shows the epic battle between the noble Rama and the 10-headed demon king Ravana, a clash frozen in stone that is believed to literally resume when the temple is empty, the air filling with the phantom sounds of clashing weapons and war cries. This idea is deeply rooted in the local spiritual concept of taksu. In Balinese Hinduism, taksu is not just talent or inspiration. It is a divine, channeled energy that brings life and power to art, dance, and even sacred places. The master sculptors of Prambanan were not merely craftsmen. They were conduits for this spiritual force, imbuing their work with a soul that transcends the physical material. The temple, therefore, is not an inanimate object but a vessel for this divine energy, a stage forever set for its eternal performance. The stories from those who know the temple best give this myth its compelling weight. Night watchmen who patrol the silent complex for hours have reported inexplicable phenomena for generations. They speak of hearing distinct metallic clangs like swords meeting, echoing from the direction of the Rama and Ravana reliefs. Others have seen long, moving shadows cast by no visible source, shadows that take the distinct shape of a monkey's tail or a demon's multiple heads sliding across the courtyard. These are not dismissed as tricks of the light, but accepted as evidence of the temple's active, breathing nature. This transforms Prambanan from a historical monument into a living entity, a place where myth and reality share a permeable border. The guardians of this temple are not hired security, but the epic heroes themselves, forever bound to their stone prison and their sacred duty, a reminder that some stories are too powerful to ever truly end. The silent, shifting statues of Prambanan offer a stark contrast to the absolute geometric perfection of the Great Pyramid of Giza. This structure, the last surviving wonder of the ancient world, stands as a monument not just to a pharaoh, but to a mystery that has captivated humanity for millennia. A persistent and powerful myth suggests its true purpose was not as a simple tomb, but as a grand initiatory chamber, a temple of esoteric knowledge where priests harnessed the power of sound to command gravity itself. The legend claims the pyramid's builders did not rely on ramps and ropes alone to lift the 2.5-ton blocks into place. Instead, they used precisely tuned instruments, chants, or resonant frequencies to make the stones float effortlessly into position, a secret science lost to the ages. The architectural evidence is compelling. The pyramid's internal chambers, like the king's chamber built from massive, resonant granite, are acoustic marvels. The coffer within this chamber, often mistaken for a sarcophagus, is carved from a single block of granite and is precisely sized to vibrate at a specific frequency. Modern acoustic studies have shown that the entire structure acts like a giant resonating chamber with certain frequencies, particularly low bass tones, echoing and amplifying through the granite passages in strange and powerful ways. This is not a random effect. The builders chose their materials with incredible care. The granite used in the inner chambers has a high quartz content, a crystal known for its piezoelectric properties, meaning it can generate a small electrical charge under mechanical stress, such as the pressure of sound waves. When struck or vibrated, these stones might have produced subtle electromagnetic fields, adding another layer of potential energy to the environment. Modern science has given this ancient idea a surprising breath of life. researchers have successfully demonstrated acoustic levitation in laboratory settings. Using precisely controlled speakers to create standing waves of sound, they can suspend tiny droplets of water or small polystyrene beads in midair, making them float within the nodes of the sound wave. While we are far from levitating stone blocks, the principle is proven. Sound can indeed counteract gravity on a small scale. This scientific validation has, however, become a fertile ground for alternative history groups. They have co-opted the myth, positioning the pyramid not as a pharaoh's tomb, but as the ultimate temple of a lost, advanced civilization. In this narrative, the pyramid was a power plant, a communication device, or a gateway to other dimensions, its construction secrets deliberately hidden from a humanity not yet ready for such power. The mainstream archaeological view, of course, remains rooted in the evidence of immense ramps, sophisticated logistics, and the sheer muscle of tens of thousands of workers. Yet the acoustic myth endures because it addresses a profound human question. How could a people with supposedly simple tools achieve such impossible precision? The sound levitation story provides an elegant, almost spiritual answer. It suggests the ancients possessed a holistic wisdom where science and spirituality were one, a knowledge not of force but of harmony, allowing them to sing the stones into the sky. But the pyramid's precise geometry represents a later stage of human ambition. To find its raw, primordial origin, we must travel back thousands of years earlier to a windswept hill in Turkey known as Göbekli Tepe. Here lies the world's oldest known temple, a structure so ancient it predates Stonehenge by 6,000 years and rewrites human history. Its most enduring myth suggests these stone circles were far more than a gathering place. The provocative theory claims Göbekli Tepe was a gateway, an observatory built to interact with otherworldly beings or cosmic forces. The evidence for this is carved into the very bones of the place, its massive T-shaped pillars. These are not simple posts, they are abstract human forms, arms and hands carefully etched into the stone, as if these giant figures are guardians of a threshold. Their bodies are covered in a menagerie of intricate carvings, foxes, scorpions, vultures, and snakes, all rendered with stunning artistry. Mainstream archaeology sees these as totems of clans or symbols of the natural world. But the portal myth interprets them differently. These animals are not just decorations, they are a language. Some researchers propose the arrangements are star maps, charting constellations as they appeared 11,000 years ago. Others see a representation of a shamanic cosmos, where each creature is a spirit guide for journeys into other realms. The pillars, then, become not mere statues but conduits or stargates, their precise alignment focusing a power we can no longer perceive. The mystery deepens with the temple's bizarre fate. After being used for centuries, Göbekli Tepe was not abandoned and left to decay. It was deliberately and meticulously buried. Every stone circle, every carved pillar was filled with thousands of tons of earth and rubble, a task requiring immense, coordinated effort. The standard explanation is that it was a form of decommissioning, a respectful retirement of a holy site. But the portal myth offers a more dramatic reason. What if it was sealed? What if the gateway was closed for a reason, to contain something or to prevent access to a force that had become too dangerous or too powerful to leave open? This act of burial is what preserved the site so perfectly for millennia, almost as if it were placed in a time capsule, waiting for us to find it. This theory fundamentally challenges everything we thought we knew about hunter-gatherers. These people supposedly lived hand-to-mouth without agriculture or permanent settlements. Yet they built this colossal, complex structure, a project requiring organization, advanced stone-working skills, and a shared, sophisticated spiritual vision. It forces us to ask a profound question. Did civilization begin not with farming and villages, but with the need to build a temple to the cosmos? The true secret of Göbekli Tepe may not be a physical portal we can walk through, but a conceptual one. It represents the moment the human mind first reached for the stars, first conceived of forces beyond the visible world, and first attempted to build a doorway to meet them. The earth that buried it did not erase its power, it only postponed the question it poses to us today. What were they really trying to communicate with, and why did they decide, in the end, that it was better left unheard? High on Shatranjaya Hill, 1,000 marble temples climb towards the sky, appearing to glow with their own captured light long after the sun has set. This is Palatana, a city of spires built by the Jain faith, and its central myth is as beautiful as its architecture. For centuries, pilgrims and priests have claimed that the pristine white marble of these temples does more than reflect light. It absorbs the energy of the sun throughout the day, releasing it after dark as a soft, ethereal luminescence that guides the faithful along the sacred path. This gentle glow is seen as a physical manifestation of the Jain principle of inner light, the divine spark that exists within every living soul, shining brightest when the external world is dark. Building this celestial city was an act of devotion that defies comprehension. Every single piece of marble, every sculpted pillar and ornate dome was carried up the steep 3,500 steps to the hill's summit by human hands. There were no machines, no beasts of burden to ease the burden, only the unwavering faith of millions of devotees over generations. The temples themselves are a symphony in stone, with filigreed screens so delicate they seem like frozen lace, and ceilings adorned with intricate carvings of lotus flowers and celestial beings. This was not construction, it was a slow, deliberate act of collective prayer, a mountain physically reshaped by belief. Skeptics, of course, search for a material cause. They suggest that specific luminescent minerals within the marble, or perhaps a particular polish applied to the stones, could explain the phenomenon. Others propose it is a simple trick of the eyes, the brilliant white stone reflecting the faint light of the moon and stars with such efficiency that it creates the illusion of an internal glow. Yet, these scientific possibilities do little to diminish the power of the experience for those who witness it. The true explanation for the devout lies in the hill's sacred status as a tirtha. This Sanskrit word means a crossing place or a ford, a point where the boundary between the earthly realm and the divine realm grows thin, where one can step from the world of illusion into the world of ultimate truth. The glowing marble is not a chemical reaction, but a literal beacon from that other side, a confirmation that this is a place where the soul's journey towards liberation can truly begin. The myth of the self-illuminating temples, therefore, transcends mere legend. It represents the core of the Jain spiritual path, a belief that through non-violence, discipline, and renunciation, the inner light of the soul can be polished clean of all obscuring karma, until it shines with its own irresistible and eternal luminescence, a light no darkness can ever overcome. The gleaming marble of Palatana's temples fades into a very different kind of legend, one not of light but of a cursed and jealous darkness. Among the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus stood as a testament to unimaginable wealth and devotion, a place where offerings of gold and ivory accumulated over centuries. Yet its destruction did not mark the end of its story, but the beginning of its most enduring secret. The myth claims the temple's vast treasures were never truly lost to fire or looters, but carefully hidden away in a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers deep beneath the marshy earth, sealed with a final, terrible plea to the goddess herself. Artemis, the powerful patron of the city, was not merely a huntress but a potent fertility deity, a protector of the wild and the vulnerable. The legend says her priests, facing the temple's final sacking, invoked a curse so powerful it would cling to the hidden gold for all time, a divine punishment for any greedy enough to seek it out. History records the temple's tragic fate. It was burned by a man named Herostratus in a quest for infamy, rebuilt in even greater splendor, only to be looted by invading Goths and finally dismantled by a Christian mob, its stones repurposed for other buildings. With each violation, the story of the hidden treasure and its guardian curse grew stronger. Early treasure hunters, armed with little more than crude maps and desperate hope, reported bizarre misfortunes. Unexplained fevers would strike down entire digging crews overnight. Tunnels, carefully dug, would inexplicably flood with groundwater, drowning the avaricious dream. Others spoke of strange sounds echoing from the earth, the baying of hounds or the twang of a ghostly bowstring just before a collapse would bury their work. In the 19th century, a more systematic British expedition, funded by a wealthy collector, used the latest engineering to drain a section of the suspected subterranean network. They uncovered minor artifacts, but the team's leader was soon after stricken with a sudden, debilitating illness that doctors could not explain. His personal journal, discovered later, spoke of recurring nightmares of a wrathful, many-breasted figure standing guard over a mountain of gold, a vision that haunted him until his death. This narrative connects the ancient power of a fertility goddess to a very tangible, avaricious fear. Artemis was a deity of life and death, of the nourishing earth that could also open and swallow the unwary. A curse from such a force would not be a simple spell, but a fundamental corruption of fortune, turning the seeker's own greed into the instrument of their downfall. The ground itself, sacred to her, would rebel against those who violated it for mere profit. This fear persists to this day, a whisper among archaeologists and locals alike. Modern surveys have indeed located extensive underground structures beneath the site of the temple, yet major excavations remain hesitant, partly out of respect and partly from that old superstitious dread. The true treasure of Artemis may not be the gold, but the enduring power of a story that reminds us some wealth is meant to stay buried, guarded by a goddess whose wrath outlasts even marble and stone. The legends of cursed gold and wrathful goddesses are a world away from the spiritual alchemy of India's Khajuraho temples. Here, amidst the famous erotic sculptures, a profound myth suggests these stone figures are far more than art. They are believed to be frozen moments of Maithuna, the sacred union, depicting a ritualistic act designed to generate and channel spiritual energy known as Kundalini. This is not about physical pleasure, but about a tantric path to enlightenment where the human body itself becomes a temple and its energies are harnessed to awaken divine consciousness. The intricate carvings show couples in intimate embrace, their forms locked in an eternal dance that represents the union of the masculine and feminine principles of the universe, Shiva and Shakti. This merging was seen as a microcosmic echo of the cosmic creation, a way to dissolve duality and experience a state of pure, undifferentiated bliss. The temples become a three-dimensional textbook of this esoteric science, each panel a lesson in transforming base human instinct into a vehicle for transcendence. A deeper, more elusive myth adds another layer to this mystery. It is whispered that during rare and powerful planetary alignments, a subtle life force animates these stone bodies. Under the specific confluence of stars, the figures are said to become vessels of prana, their silent communion radiating a palpable energy throughout the complex. This is when the temple transforms from a historical monument into a living, breathing spiritual instrument. Devotees and practitioners of certain tantric schools believe that meditating before these specific sculptures during such celestial events can trigger a corresponding awakening within the observer. The stone couple, frozen in their sacred embrace, acts as a key, unlocking the coiled Kundalini energy at the base of one's own spine, guiding it upward through the spiritual centers to achieve a state of supreme enlightenment. This is why the temples are arranged in a specific mandala pattern, creating a charged, energetic grid designed to amplify this very process. The controversy surrounding Khajuraho has always been a clash of perceptions. Colonial-era visitors saw only obscenity, their own cultural lens blinding them to the deep spiritual symbolism. Even today, many tourists see little more than ancient pornography, completely missing the profound philosophical and energetic context. Yet for those who approach with an understanding of the underlying principles, Khajuraho is not a gallery of erotic art. It is a power plant for the soul, a complex machine built from stone and symbol, where the most human of acts is reimagined as the most direct path to the divine. The true secret of these living statues is not that they move, but that they have the power to make us move, to awaken a dormant potential that turns the seeker into the final living temple. While the temples of Khajuraho harnessed the energy of the human form, an emperor's prayer required a different kind of power, one that reached directly into the cosmic order itself. In the heart of Beijing, the Temple of Heaven was far more than a beautiful park. It was the central instrument of a celestial bureaucracy, a device built to conduct the most important conversation in the empire. The myth tells us the entire complex was a perfect mirror of the heavens, designed not just to send prayers upward, but to reflect divine order back down to earth, with the emperor himself as the vital conductor in the middle. Every aspect of its construction was a code, a set of numbers and symbols meant to align the human world with the cosmos. The Hall of Prayer for Good Harvests, with its 3 distinct blue-tiled roofs, represents the 3 levels of the Chinese universe: heaven, earth, and mankind. The 4 central pillars inside symbolize the 4 seasons, the 12 inner pillars mark the months of the year, and the 12 outer pillars represent the 12 two-hour periods of the day. Even the terraces are built in tiers of 9, because 9 was the ultimate imperial number, the single largest odd digit, representing the emperor and the fullest expression of heavenly power. This was not arbitrary decoration, it was a sacred blueprint written in wood and tile. The color blue was chosen with precise intention, for the azure tiles were the color of the sky itself, making the building a perfect receptacle for celestial energy. The emperor's role in this cosmic machine was absolute. Once a year, he would lead a solemn procession from the Forbidden City to the temple. He would fast and purify himself, becoming a clean vessel for the state. At the winter solstice, he would stand at the center of the circular mound altar, an open-air platform of white marble, and offer sacrifices to the Jade Emperor. The acoustics of this altar are a marvel of engineering, designed so that a whisper spoken from the exact center stone is amplified and reflected back by the surrounding balustrades, making the emperor's words sound as if they are being supported and echoed by heaven itself. This entire ritual was the ultimate expression of the mandate of heaven. The emperor was not a god, but the son of heaven, the crucial link between the divine and the human realms. A good harvest was proof that he was in harmony with the cosmos, that his virtue and his governance were correct. A famine or a natural disaster, however, was a terrifying sign that the mandate might be withdrawn, that the cosmic feedback loop was broken. The temple was the apparatus that measured this divine approval. It transformed abstract philosophical concepts about cosmic order into a tangible, architectural reality that everyone from the highest minister to the lowest peasant could understand. The emperor did not merely pray for rain, he used the temple to calibrate the very rhythm of the world. This idea of a temple as a living, breathing entity finds one of its most intimate expressions high on the Tibetan plateau. Within the ancient Jokhang temple in Lhasa, the very floor is said to sing. A persistent and beautiful legend claims the stone slabs underfoot produce a distinct melodic sound, a soft ringing or humming, but only when walked upon by a pilgrim whose heart is truly pure and whose devotion is absolute. This is not considered a random acoustic effect, but the temple itself responding, its stones resonating with the countless prayers absorbed into their molecular structure over 13 centuries. As the spiritual heart of Tibetan Buddhism, the Jokhang is the ultimate destination for pilgrims who often travel for months by performing full-body prostrations across the entire length of their journey. They come to circle the temple and to stand in awe before the Jawo Rinpoche, the most revered statue of Buddha in all of Tibet, believed to have been crafted during the Buddha's own lifetime. The air is thick with the scent of butter lamps and the murmured rhythm of mantras, a palpable atmosphere of devotion that seems to seep into the walls and floor. From a scientific standpoint, the stones themselves are a specific type of slate and granite, worn incredibly smooth by the feet of millions of pilgrims over more than 1,000 years. This polishing creates an incredibly flat, hard surface. The temple's construction, with its large, open halls and stone floors resting on wooden beams and pillars, creates a unique acoustic environment, a kind of giant, resonant instrument. When pressure is applied to a perfectly smooth, worn stone slab in such a setting, it can indeed produce a slight ringing or creaking sound as it microscopically shifts or vibrates against its supports. Yet for the faithful, this physical explanation is irrelevant. The singing is not heard with the ears alone, but felt with the soul. It is a deeply personal and mystical experience, a direct, audible feedback from the divine. The temple is not an inanimate building, but a living repository of spiritual energy, a battery charged by faith. A pilgrim whose mind is clouded by worldly thoughts or negative intentions will hear only the scuff of their own boots. But one who approaches with a heart emptied of ego and filled with compassion is said to complete the circuit, their footfall becoming the final, gentle key that unlocks the stored music of a million prayers. This transforms a simple walk across a room into the most profound of spiritual tests, where the temple itself becomes the judge of a heart's purity, answering sincerity with a song only the worthy can hear. The polished stones of the Göbekli Temple test the purity of a single heart, but an entire pyramid in the Yucatan jungle is said to bend time itself. At Chichen Itza, the great temple of Kukulkan is world famous for the serpent shadow that slithers down its staircase during the equinoxes. Yet a far deeper myth suggests this celestial display is merely a surface effect, a hint of the structure's true power as a focal point for temporal anomalies. Visitors and researchers alike have reported unsettling experiences that defy logical explanation, moments where the solid boundary between past and present seems to grow thin. Some speak of losing hours in what felt like minutes, standing transfixed at the pyramid's base only to find the sun has moved dramatically across the sky. Others recount vivid, waking visions of processions of white-robed priests ascending the very steps they are standing on, or hearing the distant, rhythmic beat of drums and the murmur of chanting from a crowd that is not there. These are not dismissed as simple daydreams, but are woven into the local lore of the temple as a place where time does not flow in a straight line. The architecture itself is a monumental stone calendar, a physical expression of the Mayans' profound astronomical knowledge. The pyramid has 4 sides, each with 91 steps, which, combined with the shared platform at the summit, equals 365, the number of days in the solar year. Its alignment is so precise that it marks the equinoxes and solstices with breathtaking accuracy. This was not just a temple for worship, but a colossal chronometer, its very form a representation of the cyclical nature of time as the Maya understood it. Their concept of time was not a linear march from past to future, but a great revolving wheel where events, energies, and even eras were believed to recur in sacred patterns. In this worldview, the temple could act as a nexus, a point where these spinning cycles momentarily synchronize, allowing for a bleed through between what we perceive as different epochs. Modern science offers some plausible physical explanations. The pyramid's specific geometry and the intense acoustic echoes it produces could generate powerful infrasound, those low-frequency vibrations below the range of human hearing. These silent waves are known to cause feelings of unease, disorientation, and even altered states of consciousness in susceptible individuals, perfectly mimicking the sensations of a temporal shift. Combined with the psychological effects of awe, the tropical heat, and the power of suggestion, the stage is set for a profound personal experience. Yet, even with these rational factors, the myth endures because it speaks to a more profound mystery. It suggests the Maya built more than an observatory. They constructed a resonant chamber for time itself, a temple designed not just to mark the passage of the cycles, but to allow a privileged few to step inside them. The true gateway at Chichen Itza may not lead to another place, but to another when, a secret hidden in plain sight within the stone mathematics of its sacred steps. Even the timeless stones of Chichen Itza cannot escape the steady march of progress, a force made manifest in a very different kind of temple rising in the heart of a modern city. In Barcelona, the Sagrada Familia stands as an unfinished symphony in stone, its cranes and scaffolds as much a part of its identity as its soaring towers. A powerful modern myth has grown around this basilica, suggesting its architect, Antoni Gaudí, was not merely building a church but encoding a complex prophecy into its very fabric, a fusion of theology, mathematics, and natural law that we are only now beginning to decipher. The legend whispers that the temple's final completion will not be an architectural event but a spiritual one, triggering a new awakening for humanity. To walk inside is to step into a stone forest. The columns are not simple pillars but branch and split as they rise, forming a canopy of stone leaves that filter the light. These are the Tree of Life columns, a direct representation of nature as the ultimate divine blueprint. Gaudí believed the straight line belonged to man, but the curved line belonged to God, and so he filled his design with hyperboloid and paraboloid forms, shapes found in seashells, honeycombs, and the very structure of the universe. He wove in numbers with sacred significance, like the number 18, representing the life of Christ, and intricate mathematical sequences that govern the proportions of every arch and window. The controversies surrounding its construction are as legendary as its design. For decades, the project relied solely on private donations, progressing at a glacial pace. The original plans were lost during the Spanish Civil War, forcing modern architects to interpret Gaudí's vision from fragments, photographs, and his profound philosophical principles. This has led to fierce debates between traditionalists who want to adhere strictly to his known ideas and modernists who incorporate contemporary techniques and materials. The building itself has become a canvas for this ongoing dialogue between the past and the future. This process of perpetual becoming is the true sacred myth of the Sagrada Familia. It is a testament to the enduring power of faith and creativity, a project that has outlived its creator and absorbed the passions of generations. It stands as a living, evolving prophecy, not just in its predicted final form, but in its very state of incompleteness, reminding us that the most profound spiritual journeys are never truly finished, but are built stone by stone across the centuries. Far beneath the waves off Japan's Yonaguni coast, a massive stone formation rises from the seabed, its sharp angles and flat planes looking unnaturally geometric. This is the Yonaguni Monument, and the myth surrounding it claims these are not random rocks, but the sunken ruins of a prehistoric temple, a place where an unknown civilization once conducted underwater rituals in connection to the fabled lost continent of Mu. The structures appear breathtakingly man-made, with what look like wide terraces, straight-edged walls, and even a star-shaped platform that seems meticulously carved. The most compelling feature is a striking formation that locals and researchers call the turtle, a massive stone block with a clean, rectangular indentation that looks exactly like an altar, a perfect stage for some long-forgotten aquatic ceremony. This idea suggests that our ancestors may have built sacred sites in locations we would never consider, viewing the ocean not as a barrier, but as a sacred realm to be incorporated into their worship. The debate over its origin is a fierce clash between two scientific worlds. Geologists, led by figures like Robert Schoch, argue this is classic sandstone, a rock prone to fracturing along natural plains and eroding in sharp, blocky patterns due to the strong underwater currents. They point to similar formations on land, created entirely by natural forces, and see no definitive proof of human intervention. On the opposing side, archaeologists like Masaki Kimura counter with maps of the site that reveal a stunning complexity, including what appear to be wide processional roads, arched gateways, and stone columns positioned with apparent intent. They highlight specific areas where the rock surfaces are covered in marks that resemble tool grooves, patterns far more regular than typical random erosion. The mystery is amplified by the local Ryukyuan folklore, which is rich with stories of a sunken city, a prosperous land that was claimed by the sea in a distant cataclysm. These are not new tales invented for tourists, but ancient oral traditions passed down through generations, speaking of a time when the coastline was different and great structures stood where fish now swim. This folklore provides a cultural echo, a narrative backdrop that makes the idea of a submerged temple feel less like science fiction and more like a recovered memory. This modern mystery has, in effect, birthed a new kind of sacred site. Scuba divers from around the world now make pilgrimages to Yonaguni, not just for the stunning marine life, but to experience the profound, eerie atmosphere of the monument. They descend through the blue water to hover over its vast platforms, a silent, meditative journey to a place that challenges the very timeline of human civilization. Whether a natural wonder or a human masterpiece, the Yonaguni monument has become a temple in spirit, a place that inspires awe and reverence, forcing us to wonder if the most profound ruins of our past are not on our mountains, but waiting in the silent, sunken dark. The silent geometry of Teotihuacan stretches across the Mexican plateau, a city so vast and perfectly aligned it was named by the later Aztecs as the place where the gods were born. Its central myth offers a breathtaking explanation for this impossible scale, suggesting the pyramids of the sun and moon were not the work of human hands, but were raised in a primordial age by giants or by the gods themselves. This legend was not born in a vacuum, it emerged to fill a profound historical silence. Unlike the Egyptians or the Maya, the people of Teotihuacan left behind no deciphered written records, no king lists, no personal accounts. Their entire civilization, which supported over 100,000 people at its peak, simply vanished, leaving behind only a skeleton of stone and a mountain of unanswered questions. Who were these master architects who planned a metropolis with the precision of a modern engineer, and why did they abandon their glorious capital? The myth of divine creation steps effortlessly into this void, providing a narrative powerful enough to match the physical grandeur of the ruins. This idea of otherworldly builders was given a startling, tangible clue in the modern era, deep beneath the pyramid of the feathered serpent. Archaeologists tunneling into the sacred structure's core made a discovery that seemed to defy logic. They found significant quantities of liquid mercury, pooled in chambers and tracing the outlines of long sealed tunnels. In the ancient world, mercury was a substance of almost magical properties, a shimmering, heavy liquid metal that behaved unlike anything else in nature. It did not wet the skin, it balled up and rolled with a strange, sentient grace. To the people of Mesoamerica, it must have seemed like captured moonlight or something far more potent. The myth quickly incorporated this discovery, interpreting the mercury as the symbolic blood of the gods. Just as blood gives life to a body, this shimmering, toxic river was seen as the animating force of the temple itself, a sacred substance channeled from the underworld to empower this gateway between worlds. The true purpose of the mercury, however, points to a spiritual reality just as compelling as the myth. Researchers now believe these mercury-filled tunnels were a deliberate, breathtaking recreation of the underworld river, a place the Maya called Xibalba. For the people of Teotihuacan, the underworld was not a place of punishment, but a watery, dark realm of transformation and rebirth, a necessary stage in the cosmic cycle. By building this symbolic river beneath their most sacred pyramid, they were creating a physical portal to that realm. Priests and rulers may have performed rituals in these tunnels, surrounded by the dangerous, mesmerizing flow of the liquid metal, believing they were walking among the gods and ancestors, harnessing the raw power of creation itself. The Mercury was not merely a decoration, it was the central component of a massive, functional spiritual machine. This seamless blend of myth and archaeology reveals a fundamental human need. When we are confronted with a mystery too vast for our historical records to explain, we reach for stories that are equally vast. The unknown builders of Teotihuacan achieved something that felt, even to the mighty Aztecs centuries later, like the work of gods. Their true identity is one of archaeology's greatest puzzles, a lost chapter in human history. So we gave them a divine origin, and we interpreted their most enigmatic artifact as the very lifeblood of the cosmos. The Silent City, therefore, stands as a monument to two powerful forces, the genius of its nameless creators, and the enduring power of the human imagination to weave legends where history falls silent. Deep beneath the sun-baked earth of Malta lies a sanctuary of silence and sound, the Hal Saflieni Hypogeum. This sprawling, three-level underground complex is officially a necropolis, a city of the dead holding the remains of thousands. Yet a powerful local legend insists its true purpose was far more mysterious. It was known as a temple of sleep, a sacred place where priestesses did not mourn the departed, but entered trance states to interpret the dreams of the living, predict the future, and hold conversations with ancestors. The architecture itself supports this ethereal idea. The chambers are not angular and grand, but soft, rounded, and organic, carved to resemble the interiors of above-ground temples, creating a series of womb-like spaces that feel both protective and profoundly isolating. It is a place designed not for the living world, but for the journey inward. The most astonishing feature is its acoustics. A whisper spoken in one of the lower chambers, known as the Oracle Room, can be heard with perfect clarity throughout the entire complex, a property that would have made a priestess's voice seem to emanate from the very stones, a divine murmur guiding the dreamers. This was not an accidental effect. Modern acoustic studies have confirmed the hypogeum's unique sonic properties, with specific frequencies resonating in a way that can alter brainwave patterns, potentially inducing states of deep relaxation or trance. This physical reality gives incredible weight to the sleep cult theory. Archaeological findings have added a tangible, if bizarre, dimension to the myth. Excavations within the hypogeum uncovered a number of skulls that were distinctly elongated, far beyond normal human variation. While some attribute this to deliberate cranial binding, a practice known in other ancient cultures, it has fueled speculation about a specific priestly class devoted to the rituals of sleep, a group who physically reshaped themselves to better channel messages from other realms. These individuals would have been the architects of this sacred dreamscape, guiding seekers through their subconscious journeys. This myth fundamentally reinterprets the hypogeum. It transforms it from a passive repository for bones into an active, spiritual machine. Here, death was not an end, but a transition, a doorway to another state of consciousness that could be accessed by the living through guided dreams. The complex becomes a vast, subterranean antenna, its resonating chambers fine-tuned to thin the veil between our world and the world of spirit, where the whispers of the past and the visions of the future became one and the same. The sheer impossibility of Lalibella's churches confronts you not in their height, but in their depth. Hewn directly downward into the living volcanic rock of the Ethiopian highlands, these 11 monumental structures are not built upward, but excavated downward, a feat of reverse engineering that seems to defy all logic. The local myth provides a breathtaking answer for this paradox, a story passed down for over 800 years. It is said that King Lalibela, driven by a divine vision to create a new Jerusalem for Christians who could no longer safely pilgrimage to the Holy Land, did not work alone. Angels descended to the site, laboring alongside the human masons by the light of the sun, and then continuing the holy work alone throughout the night. The most massive blocks of stone, the story goes, were made weightless, floating effortlessly into their precise positions at the command of these celestial helpers. This legend does not seek to erase the human effort, but to sanctify it, framing the entire monumental project as a sacred collaboration between heaven and earth. The historical context gives this spiritual ambition a powerful foundation. In the 12th century, Muslim conquest had made the pilgrimage to Jerusalem perilous for many Christians. King Lalibela sought to solve this by bringing Jerusalem to his people. The layout of the church complex is a deliberate mirror of the holy city, with a river named the Jordan and churches positioned to represent key biblical sites. This was not mere imitation, it was a spiritual transplantation, an act of faith so profound it required a miracle to become physically real. The engineering reality is staggering enough without the angels. Workers used only hammers, chisels, and incredible human perseverance to carve these churches from the top down. They first carved a massive trench around a single block of bedrock, then painstakingly hollowed out the interior, creating naves, columns, windows, and intricate ceremonial passages, all from one solid piece of stone. The precision is mind-boggling, with drainage channels cut to protect the structures from the seasonal rains, and windows aligned to capture specific beams of light on holy days. How did they plan such complexity, working blindly from the top downward, with no margin for error? The myth of the floating stones and the angelic night shift provides a profound cultural resolution to this question of how. It bridges the gap between the staggering human achievement and the feeling that such an achievement borders on the divinely impossible. In a world where faith and daily life were inseparable, attributing the work to a partnership with the divine was the highest form of compliment to the human artisans. It was a way of saying their skill was so great it could only have been inspired and aided by heaven itself. The entire town of Lalibela, therefore, stands as something far greater than an archaeological wonder. It is faith made manifest in rock, a testament to the idea that when human devotion reaches its absolute peak, the boundary between the possible and the miraculous becomes as thin as air, and even the heaviest stone can learn to fly. Perched on the Athenian Acropolis, the Parthenon's flawless silhouette seems to defy the ravages of time and war. Its final untold myth claims this is no accident of beauty, but a deliberate frozen language. The legend insists that encoded within its marble curves and angles is a lost canon of perfect proportion, a mathematical secret to harmony so profound that deciphering it would reveal a universal blueprint for all creation. This is not a story of hidden chambers or buried treasure, but of an idea carved in stone, waiting for us to learn how to read it. The evidence begins with what we can see, the famous optical refinements. The temple's base, the stylobate, is not flat. It curves gently upward in the center, a subtle bow that prevents the massive structure from appearing to sag under its own weight. Each column leans slightly inward, and if you were to extend their lines upward, they would meet over a mile high in the sky. The columns themselves are not straight cylinders. They exhibit a gentle swelling and entosses that counteracts the optical illusion of concavity, making them appear perfectly straight and robust. These were not corrections for structural weakness. They were a master sculptor's adjustments for the human eye, an acknowledgement that truth and perception are two different things, and that true perfection requires a beautiful lie. Yet a more radical theory suggests these visible refinements are merely the first layer of a deeper code. This myth proposes the entire arrangement of the Parthenon, from the placement of its pediment sculptures to its precise orientation, functions as an astronomical clock. The famous frieze, it is argued, does more than depict a procession. Specific figures and gaps between them might align with key constellations on significant dates, marking the solstices or the founding of the city. The building's east-west orientation could capture the first light of the rising sun on the birthday of Athena, the goddess to whom it was dedicated, transforming the temple into a colossal stone calendar. This idea transforms the Parthenon from a static monument into a dynamic instrument, its meaning shifting with the celestial bodies it was built to honor. For centuries, scholars have tried to pin down the exact mathematical formula behind its proportions, often pointing to the golden ratio. The reality is likely more complex and more brilliant. The builders may have been using a system of interrelated ratios, a harmony of parts where every dimension, from the width of the building to the height of a column, relates to the others through a simple, repeating sequence. This creates a visual rhythm, a musical harmony made visible in marble that resonates with our innate sense of order. The enduring power of this final myth lies in the challenge it presents. It dares us to believe that the ancient Greeks discovered something we have since forgotten, not a fact but a way of seeing. They may have understood beauty not as a subjective preference but as an objective mathematical law as real as gravity. The Parthenon, therefore, stands not as a ruin but as an eternal question. Have we, in all our modern knowledge, simply lost the code to a wisdom they carved in stone for all time? A secret that would teach us not just how to build, but how to see the hidden geometry of the world itself. From the floating stones of Lalibela to the singing floor of the Jokhang, these 25 untold myths have taken us on an incredible journey across continents and centuries. They reveal a hidden layer of human history, one where faith, mystery, and soaring ambition are permanently intertwined. These are not just stories to explain the unexplainable. They are the enduring soul of these sacred places, narratives that give voice to the silent stones and meaning to the immense labor of their creation. In every legend, we find powerful common threads: the universal human search for a connection to the divine, the attribution of magnificent, near impossible achievements to supernatural aid, and the profound, enduring power of a specific place to hold and radiate spiritual energy. These myths remind us that our ancestors saw the world as a place alive with possibility, where the boundary between the earthly and the heavenly was a thin veil, and where a temple could be a machine for transformation, a gateway to the stars, or a living entity in its own right. So we are left with a final, thought-provoking question. Do these beautiful myths simply fill the empty spaces in our historical knowledge, creative stories to comfort us in the face of the unknown? Or do they, in their own way, point to deeper truths about these sacred sites, intuitive understandings of earth energies, lost sciences, and spiritual realities that conventional history has simply failed to acknowledge? The answer may be as personal as the myths themselves. We would love to hear your thoughts. Which of these temple legends resonated most deeply with you? And do you have a favorite myth from a sacred site that we did not cover? Share your own discoveries in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into the shadows of history, subscribe for more explorations into the world's greatest mysteries, and never stop seeking out the hidden stories that shape our understanding of this incredible world.